I will show you 7 tips on how to get so insanely good at Sudoku that you can ignore the difficulty level. The last trick is the best. And with that, it's solving time. So tip number 1, sometimes you should start with looking for pairs instead of singles. If you look for single candidate restrictions from 1 to 9 to start this puzzle, you're not going to get very far. You will be able to see with this 7 and this 7, you can solve for 7 right here, but that's about it. There's very few other marks you can make. However, if you look and scan for 2 digits at a time, notice here in column 5 that you have a 5 and an 8 in that column. Well, look across the row. You also have a 5 and an 8 in row 5. So where can the 5 and the 8 go here in the middle block? It can only go there and there. So this is a 5-8 hidden pair. And these are the type of 2-cell restrictions you have to find if you want to solve puzzles like this, especially when you start out with less than 20 starting digits in the grid. Greetings, friend. If you want to get so insanely good at Sudoku that hard puzzles like this are easy for you, then you have to use the tips and tricks I'm about to show you. And before I show you the next place to look, I do want to hear from you. Are Sudoku puzzles harder or easier than the listed difficulty level for you? Please, please, please share that in the comments and help me grow the internet's best Sudoku community. Now, this next pair is even harder to spot, but you want to look at the 5s and 9s. This way, where could a 5 and 9 be here in column 3? With this 5, 9 right there, it cannot be in any of these 3 cells, right? Well, you might notice that there's a 5 and 9 in row 5, so 5, 9 cannot be there either. And if you come down to row 9, there's also a 5 and 9 right there. So you see how the 5, 9 pair up here, here, and here. And so it restricts the 5 and 9 to these 2 cells in column 3. This is a 5, 9 hidden pair. And you have to find this if you want to take the next step in this puzzle. Very hard to spot. I bet you did not find this without help from the thumbnail, because this is the pair I was talking about. But what it does is it opens you up for tip number 2. So tip number 2, you always want to look for the impact on the row, the column, and the block. Now that you did this 5, 9 right here, check out what it does for the 4s. You have a 4 coming down column 2. And you have a 4 cutting across row 9. Because of this 5, 9 there, the 4s are now restricted to these 2 cells in block 7. Since they're in the same column, they're a pointing pair, which means since you've got to have a 4 in one of these spots, you can't put them here or here anymore. And then you got this 4. Now you can solve for 4 here in block 4. And we can do a little bit of marking here to get caught up. You might notice now with this 4 cutting across here, you can mark 2 places for a 4 in block 5. And so I will mark restrictions when a candidate is restricted to 2 spots in any 3x3 block as we move along. With these 3s, you have a nice pointing pair of 3s here now across row 7 here in block 9. And now the 5s are going to come in handy again. And you had to find this 4 to set up this next hidden pair. Where can the 4 and the 5 be now across row 3? Because of this 4, 5, they can't be in any of these 3 spots, right? Well, now at this pointing pair of 4s and this 5, 4, 5 cannot be there either. It can be here, but it cannot be here because of this 4 and 5. So you start scanning and looking at 2 digits at a time, and you'll notice the 4 and 5 are now restricted to those 2 cells in row 3. So you can mark that as another hidden pair. And hidden pairs are something I cover along with the other top 7 strategies in my Sudoku solving guide. You can download it for free from the pinned comment below. But after finding this 4, 5 hidden pair, now you can look at the impact on the row, the column, and the block. Because you have this 9 coming up and this 9 cutting across. There's only 2 places for a 9 in block 2. And so they're a pointing pair across row 1, along with this 9 across here. So where can a 9 go in block 3? It can only go right there. So you can solve that for a 9. And then with that 9 and these two 9s, you can solve a 9 here in block 6. And then with these 9s and this 9, you actually have 2 places for a 9 in block 4. So you do want to mark that. And we're going to move on to tip number 3. There may not be too much you can see right now. So when in doubt, mark it out. That's my tip. And so we saw these 3s right here. But let's check out these 8s. You got this 8 cutting across here. So an 8 can be in one of these 3 spots in block 3. So it's actually a pointing triple. I won't mark that because I only want to mark 2 spots to show those 2 cell restrictions. But what it does is it lets you look and go, okay, well the 8s can't be in row 3 here in block 3. They can't be in row 3 here in block 2. So an 8 has to be somewhere in row 3 in block 1. And since you have an 8 right there, this is going to be a claiming pair. And so you want to mark that, and now realize you can't put an 8 here or here because of the claiming pair. Otherwise, you'd have no place to put an 8 in row 3. These are the tips you want to find, become insanely good at Sudoku. And now let's move on with these 4s. With this 4 cutting across, and this 4 coming up, since you put a 9 here, now you have a pointing pair of 4s in block 6. And what does that do for our column? Well, 4's got to be here or here now. You can remove the 4 from this cell and solve that for a 5, disambiguating the 4 and the 5 in row 3. You see how all these solves build upon each other? So you want to mark it out and then kind of move along and remove the marks as you make those solves. What else can you do with the 4s? With these 4s and this 4, you got 2 4s there, and with this 4 and the pointing pair of 4s, with this 4, 2 4s in block 8. And now look at where the 5s can go. With these 5s and this 5, can't really find some easy solves, so I'm just doing some marking here. You can put 5s in block 2, and then with this 5, with these 5s, 5s in block 9. And then now what you might see is this 4, this pointing pair of 4s, and this 4 here, you can actually solve for a 4 now in block 3. And with these 8, that means the 8s are restricted to those 2 cells in block 3 as well. So there's something interesting going on here that you can use the marking to find. Check out block 9. You put the 6 across row 7. Where can the 6s go? Well, these 2 spots here. So they're a pointing pair of 6s. But you notice the 5s are restricted there as well. Now, with this 8, an 8 cannot be in this cell right here. And because of this 8, it can't be here. So where can the 8 go now in column 7? Well, if it can't be here or here, you actually have a claiming triple of 8. The 8s have to be in one of these spots now in block 9, right? Do you understand? Because it can't be here or there. And so the 5s are restricted to one of these 3 cells. The 6s are restricted to one of these 3 cells, and the 8 is restricted to one of those 3 cells. You have found a hidden triple, and the reason it's a hidden triple is because it's hidden among the other candidates. But a 5, 6, and 8 have to be somewhere in the purple cells. So you can mark that, and now I'll leave you with just a 2 and a 3 naked pair to finish off block 9. Okay, so we can remove the 6 from right there, and we can remove the 5 from right there. And this is going to help us out with some more solving now. Because once you find that, it leads me up to tip number 4. So tip number 4 is you want to look for digit restrictions. Because you put a 2, 3 right here, it puts a lot of pressure now across row 7. So look at this cell. Intersection. You got 2, 3 represent these 2 cells, 6 and a 7. So 4 digits look at this cell in the row. In the column, you have a 5, a 9, and an 8. So now you can see you got all those looking at this cell. But remember, too, you have a pointing pair of 4s. The 4s extend the restriction in this column. Or you can notice that the 4s are restricted here. Either way, this can't be a 4 anymore. And since it can't be a 2 or 3, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, this is actually a naked single 1. And you want to find these digit restrictions to help extend your solve and accelerate the ability to solve puzzles like this. Because what does this 1 do? It now comes up column 5 and creates a pointing pair of 1s in block 5. And then you look at this one, and you can solve for 1 now in block 6, displacing that 4, which displaces this 4, and you can solve this cell now for a 4. And then with these two ones, you can solve for 1 up here in block 3. That's the only place the 1 can go. With this one, the 1s become a nice hidden pair, 1 and 5. They're restricted to the same 2 cells. And then the 1s are going to be in one of these 2 cells now in block 1. Okay, after doing that, you can look here in column 7. Since the 5, 6, and 8 are in those 3 cells, and you have a 1, 3, 4, 7, and 9 all in these cells, the only thing left, if you look at this digit restriction, is a 2. So you can solve that for a 2. And so the 2 cuts across with this 2, and you can solve for a 2 here in block 5. And that gives you 2 places for a 2 here in block 8. And then the only thing you have left is a 1 and a 7. Well, with this 7, this has to be your 7 displacing that 1. And now you can disambiguate the 5 and the 1 right there. So going back to tip 2, row, column, and block, and look at the impact. Well, with this 5, that's got to be an 8, and that's got to be a 5. And now you can disambiguate the 7, the 5, and the 9 right there. Look at all these solves. You can remove the 5 from right there, and you're going to get very excited. You can be like, Timberlake, I got this puzzle solved. You don't yet. This is a tough, tough puzzle. There's still one more trick up its sleeve. You got to follow along because I still have 3 more tips and tricks to show you. So making all those marks, let's continue with the impact on the row, column, and the block. See how this 8 cuts across? There's only 2 places for an 8 now in block 6. So they're a pointing pair of 8s. So you can remove this as an 8. You can't have an 8 there anymore. Allows you to solve for an 8 right here. And with this 7 coming up, there's only 2 places for 7 now in block 3. Okay, and then with this 3, you only have 2 places for a 3 here. And so now I'm going back to in the doubt, mark it out. So I'm marking out cells until I find some restrictions that are going to allow us to do some more solves. And then that brings me up to tip number 5. So tip number 5 is switch to by value cells. And so we've been marking it out. Now you want to look, and if you start finding by value cells, that's the tip you're about to find in advanced strategy. So one way we can do that is we can look at these restrictions across row 7. You have a 1, you get the 2, 3 here, 5, 6, and 7. So you need a 4, 8, and a 9. Well, the 9 and 8 are right there, so this is actually a naked single 4. So that's our digit restriction, and that's when you looked at this intersection. So you can displace that 4, displace this 4, solve this for a 4. And now you want to fill out the 8, 9 naked pair right there. And you're like, all right, we got some by value cells. I also call them BVCs there. When you start seeing those, you want to kind of look a little bit further. Okay, so look across row 5. You got a 3 and a 6 here to finish up row 5. And then you can still look for single candidate restrictions with the 2s. They're restricted here in block 4. And now you look at these 1s. Only place 1s can go are right there in block 7. And then if you see if these 5s and this 5, you actually can solve a 5 in block 4. So it's going to keep chiseling away. You notice that with these 9s and this 9, you can put 9s right there in block 7, only 2 places. And then in block 8, with this 9 and that 9, only 2 places for a 9 right there. And then you might see with these 7s, you can actually solve for a 7 in block 4. And with these 7s, you can mark 7s right here. And just kind of getting the idea of where are all those restrictions, because we haven't quite found a way to get through this puzzle yet. So now you want to look at the 3s. With this 3 cutting across, there's only 1 place for a 3 now in block 4. So you can solve that for a 3, solve that for a 6, displacing the 3, displacing the 8. all really quick solves there. And this 3 is going to help you out because you can disambiguate the 2 and the 3 there. This 2 and this 2 means you can solve this for a 2, and then you just have left a 6, 7 naked pair. So you want to mark that pair out. And after solving all that, now it's time for tip number 6. Tip number 6, investigate the BVC areas a little further. So if you look down here in block 8, if you start filling out some of these columns, you're going to start noticing some more buy value cells. Let's look at column 5. You got a 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, and 9. So you just need a 3, 6, and a 7. Okay, this is what the experts do. So you can remove the 3 from right there, and you can remove the 7 right there, and you created 2 more buy value cells. What about column 4? You have a 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need a 3, 8, and a 9. This can't be an 8, and this cannot be a 9. You created 2 more buy value cells. So we're getting some buy value cells down here. Okay, what about column 6? You got a 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. You need a 2, 6, and a 9. 2, 6, and a 9 right there. This can't be a 2, and this cannot be a 9. You create another buy value cell. So you focus now here in block 8. And you want to see if some of these buy value cells share common candidates. Well, check out this 3, 6 right here. What you might notice is that it is in the same row as this 6, 8, and they share a candidate, a 6. It's also in the same block as this 3, 8, and they share a candidate, a different candidate. They share a 3. No matter what the value of this orange cell is, it's going to impact the value of these blue cells. So if this is a 3, this has to be an 8. The only other option it can be is a 6. If this is a 6, that has to be an 8. So what you may notice is no matter what this cell is, one of these blue cells has to be an 8. And so you can remove an 8 from any cell that sees both. That means it shares a row, column, or block with both of these cells. And so where you'd look would be right here, which does not contain an 8, or right there, right? Because it sees both of these blue cells. This one in the column and block, this one in the row. So you can remove an 8 from right there. This will extend your solve. This is beautiful. And this is called an XY wing. And you find these in the harder puzzles like this, and once you find them, you can start finding these much easier, and you'll get insanely good at puzzles like that. We still got one more tip, one more trick I love to throw out there. We got to find that to keep moving through the rest of the puzzle. But let's look at that impact. Row, column, block. This has to be a 6 now, which means that's going to be an 8. Let's remove these colors and see what else can you solve after doing that. What you may notice is now with this 6, this has to be your 2. And we can remove the 2 there and the 2 right there. And you go, okay, Timberlake, now what? Well, with these 2s, the 2s are restricted in block 7 to those 2 cells. Well, looks like a 2 is restricted to columns 1 and 2 in block 4. It's also restricted to columns 1 and 2 in block 7. So a 2's got to be here and here or here and here. This quickly tells you a 2 has to be in this column in block 1, right? Can't be there, can't be here, so it's got to be in one of these cells. And since you have a 2 here and here, you can solve this cell now for a 2. Okay, after solving that for a 2, you might see with this 3 coming up, 3 can't be here because of this 3. You can solve this cell now for a 3. And this brings me up to tip number 7. And this will have the biggest impact because you will solve the most cells if you master this tip, and you'll solve much quicker. Tip 7, hunt down the marks. All these marks you made, you want to quickly as possible remove the marks because they represent your 1-step and 2-step restrictions. They're the quickest way to solve a cell is to remove those marks. And it reduces the clutter so you can see the rest of the grid much easier. Because there's 3, that has to be a 9. That's going to be a 6, that's going to be a 7. And with this 3 here, that's going to be a 6. You got the 9 right there. You got the 8 right there and the 3 right there. If you go block by block, you don't have to revisit any of those blocks anymore. With this 8, that's got to be your 9. And then you can remove the mark right there. And you look and go, okay, now what else can you solve? With this 6, You can do 7 and 6 right there, and block 3 is all done. You have a full house, 8 of 9 cells filled out. With certainty, you can solve that for a 3 now. And with this 3 and this 3, you can solve this for a 3, displacing that 2. You displace the 2, you can solve for the 2 right there. Another full house, this has to be a 6. And then with these two 6s, you can solve this cell for a 6, displacing that 1, displacing that 8. And you see how quickly you can solve once you hunt down those marks. This has to be a 7 to finish block 1, and we just have one block remaining. You can start by knowing the 7 is displaced there, and you can solve this for a 7. The 1 comes down and solves right here, and then our last digit is an 8. Now use the tips and tricks you just learned to crush this next puzzle. Thank you so much for watching.